Welcome to Child's Play by EYR, a podcast dedicated to innovative approaches in education. Join us and our expert guests as they share ideas, strategies, and valuable insights to support the needs of all children. Today, we're joined by Sarah Seaman, aka the Muddy Puddle Teacher. After training as a teacher, Sarah spotted an opportunity in outdoor learning, and in 2018, the Muddy Puddle Teacher Approach was born. Let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah. Thanks for joining us for Children's Mental Health Week. Would you like to tell us a bit more about yourself and what you do?
Thank you for having me on. This is very exciting. I was originally a teacher, have been for 14 years. I came out of the classroom only last year, actually, and I had to be pulled, screaming and kicking. And I've been the Muddy Puddle Teacher now for 6 years. Basically, I have a big passion for outdoor learning. And the way that I word it now is I say that my platform for teaching is the outdoors, but actually what I'm trying to bring is strong mental health links, developing the children's physical development. But I just love the collaboration, socialization, bringing imaginative and creative play and learning in, and to help our neurodivergent children. So I kind of had all of these super passions as a teacher, and then started to realize further on down my practice that actually teaching outdoors was how I was going to bring it all together and how I was going to support all of these educational issues. And so I did some forest school training, did the level 3, and I taught that for a couple of years. Absolutely loved it, but absolutely understood. I was a senior leader, then assistant head, that we couldn't do this all of the time. We're not Finland, we're not the Scandinavian countries, unfortunately. We are the UK, and I knew that the curriculum, in Finland, their curriculum's like one page, ours is like about 25. So it was never going to happen. But I wanted to bring elements of it to my practice. So I had an amazing head teacher who supported me. And I did a hell of a lot of outdoor learning always throughout my whole teaching practice. And then I got to a point where I was like, it's working, but it's just not got the quality of what indoor sessions have. And so when I'd got 2 little girls, I decided to leave teaching for a bit of work on it. And basically I started as a social media influencer. So I just started sharing it on Facebook like you do. And within 3 months, I got like 50,000 people following me. So it just went really big, really fast. And then I was like, people actually want this. It's not just me. It's not just the mental Sarah teacher that's always out with the kids and doing the bear hunt and doing barefoot stuff. Like there's other people just like me that want to bring this into education. So yeah, I worked on it and I've been developing the approach. It's been around now for 6 years. And I now go around consulting, training. We do online training, face-to-face training, and the bulk of what I do is talking to my schools, working with them, mentoring them, because it's all about tailoring outdoor learning to how it fits you and your staff's confidence levels. But also I write a hell of a lot now, which is crazy considering I'm dyslexic. But every day I'm writing new lesson plans, new schemes of work. And it's just, for me, it's really, I love it because it's so creative. I'm writing things that have never been written before. I'm doing lessons and helping people with lessons that have never been taught before. So it's really exciting what I do. And yeah, it's great.
It sounds lovely that you're sharing, I think you call them your super passions with everybody else, and then having them kind of become part of your community. In terms of building that community and building self-esteem and empowering children, you do that through the 3 Muddy M's. Could you tell us a bit more about them? How and why did you choose them?
Yeah. So when I was creating the approach, something that I was really aware of was that there's always external people, Ofsted, that are wanting to come and go, well, why is that better than doing it inside? And there is still a lot of stuff in education whereby people still believe that children sat at desks is learning and that what the children are doing on worksheets is learning. And for me, that was never the case. Just because a child has written on a worksheet does not mean they have learnt it. If they can teach it to others, if they can explain their learning, then I know a child's learnt. But doing it on a worksheet does not prove that. And it should not prove that to any external providers. And what I've always believed in is that practical, engaged learning where children are expressive and love their learning and things like that. So I wanted to make sure that when we taught outside, we weren't creeping our indoor teacher out, because what's the point? We're indoor teachers. And then when we go outside, we need to take the benefits of what's out there and what it brings us. Like I mentioned before, we can support the neurodivergent, we can bring in mental health. We can't do that if we're going to teach like we did inside. So we can't just take whiteboards and pens outside. You can't just take clipboards outside. And that is what I did. But then I started to realize when I really reflected on it, actually, that could have been done indoors. there's been no benefit. They've still got heads down. There's no heads up. It's not more playful. It's not supporting my neurodivergent children. So I had to really like reinvent the game. And what I was always really good as a child was just using what I had around me. My mum used to call me the junk lady because I used to just find stuff around the house, make it up, wrap it up for Christmas and give it them. And she'd be like, oh, never knew that could be like that and use that. And that was what I did. And I just sort of tapped into my childhood really and just started using natural resources around me and upcycle resources because when you're out there, everything weathers, it gets ruined. And I hate seeing things getting ruined. I'm all up for sustainability as well. And I started to realize that actually by using all of this stuff, and being sustainable, and being a good green role model, but also it's helping us with being imaginative because, the stick is not a pen, but maybe we're going to use it as a pen, but maybe we're going to use it as a grid. Maybe we're going to use it as that. So I went through all of this process and then I realized that I've got to deliver that to my educators. I've got to help them, fast track them so that they don't make the same mistakes as me and that we keep true to this approach because I know when it's done properly, it is incredibly powerful and it creates lessons better than ever it could have been done indoors. So this is where the three muddy M's came up. So my practitioners stick to these three muddy M's when they plan, and it helps them deliver quality first sessions outside. So the first one is Mother Nature. So we always try and use what we've got out there, natural materials. And that again just completely segregates us from the inside space straight away because it becomes very sensory. It means that we're really supporting our neurodivergent children because they're getting sensory experience from this. We're also being green, we're being sustainable. It's also so open ended and something our children are lacking these days because of technology and other people's imaginations being splurred all over them. They're not necessarily using their own as much. And we know that plays change dramatically, at home. It's more solo, it's more technology based. And how we played was really, really good for us. We gained so much from it, socialization, imagination, creativity. And I saw in my 14 years of practice that dwindling away a little bit, that creativity. I remember like my first couple of years, my morning activity would be, imagine if you were invisible, what would you do? And the kids would all tell me what they did. And I remember doing it like 10 years later, 11 years later, and it not being the same anymore. They couldn't come up with things. And it was like, that's happened really fast. And I felt really sad for that. And so using your natural resources, it makes you be more imaginative, open-ended. So it's like, you've got 20 sticks, kids. I want you to go and make me a pumpkin. It's Halloween time. And I want you then to describe it to your partner. Or you've got 10 sticks. I want you to make me an imaginary ladder and I want you to tell me where it leads to. And it's sort of like is making them play like they used to and open their imaginations up a lot more. So it's really powerful. Just that one muddy M is using Mother Nature. We also use upcycled items as well. And that's mainly for our early years when it's continuous provision and things like that. And then the next one is mental health. So we know the benefits of being outside. I think everyone knows that from COVID, the vitamin D boost. I got out absolutely every single morning. And if I don't go for that little 5-minute walk with my dog, I don't feel the same Sarah as I do in a day. And it's little tweaks like that in our life of just using nature and being with nature that can really shift all of our moods. And we have to remember that our children don't know how to regulate their moods. I mean, most adults, I don't think, really know how to regulate their moods most of the time. But nature can do that for you, just going out for that little walk. And a lot of my schools will start the day being outside first thing to try and help children regulate. And yeah, it's a way for them to help with their mental health. And for some children, they'll say to you, I need to be outside when I'm not feeling my bright days. And it's giving them a tool, in their belt for life if they understand that that outdoor space is helping them. So mental health is another big reason for being outside as well. I don't feel like children naturally should be caged into four walls anyway. If you ask your class, where do you want to be, inside or out? 95% of your class will put their hand up and say they want to be out. The children are asking to be outside. And it helps with them as groups, being a class of 30, some of my schools can be, after Key Stage 1, it can be bigger. It's a lot of people in a lot of room, isn't it, at one time, and for children that have got sensory needs, being outside again can diffuse all of that, make us all feel better. And then the third one is more kids moving. Another thing I'm really passionate about is kids aren't moving enough, We've got a big thing, in early years working on gross and fine motor skills. And really, that should be a really big, focus in key stage 1 as well, and key stage 2, where the children are inside even more. But yeah, it's just this push to keep them moving all of the time. And this is what I love about early years and the passion of play. And, the journey that we've come on with early years, in the 15 years I've been teaching from, oh, you're just playing outside, to now people respecting it, fills me up with a lot of joy, because it means the kids are constantly moving. And that's the way they want to be, the little ones. They want to keep moving. They want to keep inquisitive, that love for learning. And so everything we do is very playful. So, my schools will and do things in playful ways, and are passionate about using that word as well. And we've got a few of our schools now that are doing continuous provision all the way up to year 6. So we're moving that on once again, of that power of play, and using our expertise from early years to push it forward. So yeah, they're the 3 things that we stick to. And if we stick to them, we tend to get a really focused outdoor creative sessions. And it just helps us stop that inside teacher coming outside, so that we use the power of what's out there.
I remember going from maybe like 5 or 6 and spending more time outside, and then suddenly in year 6 and you've got your SATs and exams and
Yeah.
papers and so I feel like maybe even now as an adult, I could definitely benefit from being outside a lot
Yeah.
more, and feel like, yeah, I would regulate my mood. Maybe we should start in the office
Yeah.
every
It's the
morning.
little things. It's the little things. So a lot of my schools will do staff meetings outside. They'll
Mhm.
go for walks at lunchtime. It's the tiny little things, and it's such a basic thing to go outside, but it is your basic need. We were built as humans to be outside. We're now not, but it is in your nature to be there. And especially with the little ones, like, they're asking to go out there, and it is us going, no, you'll get muddy, you'll get messy, stay in. It's easier for me if you stay in. But actually it's not, it's much easier for you if they're outside, because they can be who they want to be. You'll notice differences in some children as well. Some children quite quiet, timid inside. You go outside and like a different kid, and you're like, my goodness, how can you change so drastically? But it really, really does happen. I had a selective mute once who he would not talk inside, but outside he would. Not a lot, but outside he would. And it's like, for some children, that environment is a bit much for them, and they feel a lot more themselves when they're outside. And that's what we want. We want children to be comfortable with us, be themselves, because that's when we can help them to learn and grow, when they're at that comfort stage. Yeah, I think you girls are a little bit younger than me, but as a child, like when I go and do my training sessions and I go to my schools, the first thing I'll say to them is, tell me your favorite childhood memory. And every single one of them will be outside. Every single one. We might have some young people that'll go Disneyland, or they'll say indoor hide and seek, but the absolute majority will be, I played in the lake, I played with sticks, I rolled down hills, I sat on pizza boxes and went down hills, and we played like bikes outside. It'll all Kirby is a big one that everyone's played. Petal potions, mud pies, climbed trees, fell out with friends. All of that is always outdoors, and now it's not. You'll go, "What have you done over this Christmas?" "Oh, I've played on my iPad, or I've been on my Xbox, or, I've played, with my plastic toys inside." It's all very cellular solo, and not necessarily always, but a lot more so.
How was your childhood? Because you grew up not in the city, did you? I grew up in a very small village in Yorkshire. And so I feel like a lot of it was inside, but we did also, we were quite lucky, and we had a bit of an orchard outside.
Yeah,
So we used
yeah,
to go outside all the time, go to the pond, look at the frogs, look at the frogs
yeah,
spawn,
yeah.
all the leaves and that kind of thing. So that I was thinking about that when you're talking about memories and favorite memories. I think that's one of my favorites at school.
And as teachers, we would love to do all of that stuff, but the curriculum won't let us,
Yeah.
because we've got too much going on. And there is science in year 1. They cover frogs and life cycle,
Mhm.
but it was always about me trying to get all that gushy stuff that you just said, and sneak it into our curriculum, because the kids will see stuff outside and they'll go, "What's that, miss? What's this?" And I might be doing a maths lesson, and I might be teaching them arrays outside, but actually I've just sneaked in the fact that, oh, that's an oak tree. And, oh, you know what? This is that. It's that Mary Poppins. I always say it's that granny vibe. It's like, as taking them outside, teaching them the curriculum, but then that granny vibe coming in as well. Almost just giving them the gushy stuff, the beautiful stuff of life, and the stuff they should really know, because without all of this, we wouldn't be here. So It's just a sneaky way of us manipulating the curriculum. And there's nothing on the curriculum that says you've got to teach it inside anyway. It's just how we've interpreted it. But if you look really heavily at the science side of things, I don't know why we ever taught it inside. A lot of my schools will always say this. They go, I cannot believe I taught autumn on a PowerPoint when it was autumn outside. And I went, I know. What state have we got into where we've got all of this lovely natural curriculum, yet we don't teach it outside?
How do you cope in the weather's getting kind of colder? Because I remember one of the early outdoor sessions I did with children. I think it was the
Yeah.
very first one. It started hailing,
Yeah.
and there were tears at the end because it went down the back of their coats and they couldn't get it out. And I think when the sun
Yeah.
rolled in, we had to give up and go inside. But
Yeah.
I think children do find that kind of weather as well, like really interesting. It's like a whole new sensory
Yeah.
until it gets in your coat. But before
Yeah,
that,
exactly. But isn't that a memory? So we know that children remember their learning. If they really experience a fun lesson, then they're going to remember it better. Okay. So on a worksheet, there's a lot of worksheets the children will do in a lifetime, and they probably won't remember that learning ever again. But if we make it memorable, then they have experienced it. They've heightened their senses, and they're going to remember it. And especially for any of your children that struggle, or working below or dyslexic and struggle retaining their learning, experiences like that can really help. So if you've been teaching a maths lesson outside, right, and it hails, they're going to remember that. And you're going to keep referring to it. Do you remember the time when we were learning, how to count to 10? And then it hailed on us. And it's like, yeah, that's a memory, and there's science linked into that and everything. But yeah, you just have to manage the weather best you can. You've got to remember that your children have got to be dressed well. If they're not dressed well, then it's a miserable experience for everybody. Like, I'm a super nesh person. I really am. Like, I have to have fleecy leggings on. In the olden days, when I was, just a young 20-year-old with not much money, I used to just wear my fleecy pajamas. I used to like wear what I was wearing for work, turn up, and then I put my pajamas on, and then I just put my coat over the top. And I just didn't really care. I was warm. And the kids used to come in the same things, used to bring a fleecy onesie, put that over the top of their uniform, then the coats are on top. Once we were all warm, we were fine. Like, we could stay out there all the time. And we used to, and a trick that I always use in my schools is we have hot drinks outside. So we get those big flasks, and it's someone's job every day to put that outside with hot chocolate so staff can access it and kids can access it when it's in our colder months. So generally it's January and February, which are the most difficult months to get by when you're teaching outside. But always suggested you just don't teach outside for as long. And because we use the 3 muddy M's and we don't do any sit down learning, so nothing's sat down, it's all got to be active and playful. Otherwise, there's no point. You may as well go inside with the windows down. We're always moving. So it just means that you have to get a bit more skilled at making sure what activity you've got outside is going to be active. If you're planning your lesson that week, it's going to be cold. So whatever you've got to do has got to be active. And I probably wouldn't take like the whole session outside, just maybe like 10 minutes of it and then do 10 minutes of it inside. So it's just about getting experienced at it and juggling the weather. There's only one time where I've actually, thunder, yes, I would come in for. And maybe if the big balls of hail were coming down, even though that would be so much fun, and I probably want to stay outside and just play with the kids with it. But was when I did a Harry Potter themed day. And I was so excited about doing this. And it was all linked into literacy. And I got the owl guide, come with the owls, and I put up a marquee for him and everything. And it was the windiest, wettest, just day ever. And it just didn't stop, like never stopped. All the birds were going mad. The kids were all rolling around the floor. The marquee was coming off. And that's the only time. And my staff kept going, Sarah, I think we're going to have to go in now. And I was like, no, I planned this day. It was going to be great. That's the only time I've gone in. It's the rain that puts us off, isn't it? And we go, oh, it's raining outside. But it's very rare I go outside and it absolutely chucks it down the whole session. It'll probably chuck it down for a bit and then it stops. And you just have to teach the children to take shelter and then go back out again. But everything we use, because it's natural and upcycled, it doesn't really matter. If you've gone out there with paper and clipboards and whiteboards and pens, your lesson's ruined. But because we use natural and upcycled, it doesn't really matter. So we might be using sports equipment and cones, and they're doing relay race spellings or relay race phonics. And it doesn't matter, is it? If it's raining, you just carry on. If it's, we're doing something like we're counting and we're using the sticks and the leaves, or we're making a human body, it doesn't matter if it's raining because we're using leaves and sticks. So that's why it's really important to use the natural resources, because the weather can't get to us otherwise.
So it sounds like learning all these new skills for like independence and self-confidence can support the overall well-being of children.
Yeah.
What advice would you give for grown-ups like parents or even of the teachers to provide young people like children with the tools that they need to be healthier and happier?
I think that's what the outdoors does, just play. It's as simple as that, isn't it? I've been doing a lot of work with babies, and how babies develop, and obviously their sensory experiences are really important. And I've been really looking into what the children play with, and for children at that age to develop, the senses help them, and that's how their brains connect and grow is through sensory experiences. So I went to a conference recently and I put this forward to some of the educators that were there and sort of saying to them, like, well, if our kids are just touching plastic and they're just at home, then surely that's a repeated sensory experience that's not providing any growth for their brains to develop. And we were just like really looking into this because for me, being outside every day is a different experience for a child, a different sensory experience. It will always be a different smell. It will always be a different sensation on their skin. It will always look differently. The light texture changes every time you're outside because of the weather type. So for me, taking children outside is so important for them. I do a lot of work with my special needs children as well, who might be oversensitive or undersensitive to sensory experiences. Again, the outdoors helps with that because every day is different. And if you allow the children to get used to all of these different senses, smells, textures, then it's just the simplest way. Like, if I'd known this as my kids as babies, if I knew this sort of like area of learning that I know now, I would have got my kids out even more. I can like I've got my girls are like 9 and 7 now, but my 9-year-old is very different from my 7-year-old. And my 7-year-old was the one that I did understand all of this with, and I did a lot more work with her as a baby, taking her outside and making sure she got those sensory experiences. And I do see the difference. Sienna is coming on with it now. I mean, she used to hate mud, and she used to tell her nursery teachers, "I hate mud and I hate puddles," and her mum was the muddy puddle teacher. So she's coming on with it loads now, but there's definitely a massive difference between their sort of sensory needs between the two girls. And I do believe it's because Florence got that input a lot more with being outside and being in nature. It's free, it's there. And I always say this to everybody, like, learning experiences don't cost. Anybody can do it from any demographic, like any country can give their child learning experiences. It's all out there in nature.
You did mention kind of the inclusiveness of what you do. What has your own experiences been like with dyslexia? Is there anything you wish that as a child you would have had that you kind of pass on to children that you kind of notice had the same difficulties when you're teaching?
Yeah, I mean, I think like this is what Muddy Puddles has always been about, to be perfectly honest. So when I got into teaching, started in year one, reception, and I was really shocked at how we still didn't have any skill sets to support children who are neurodivergent. We were hardly there at all. We hardly doing anything different, to be perfectly honest, from when I was there. It's just it was talked about more, but there was nothing in place. I was always really passionate about my children that were working below and my special needs children, and I never believed that they didn't have the capability to learn because I proved a lot of people wrong. I'm dyslexic and I've got ADHD, and I have 2 degrees, a master's, and a book now. So it was always possible. I just had to teach myself how I learn. And the way that school was teaching me was not helping me whatsoever. It's wasting my time really because it just wasn't how I learned. So all of this was about bringing a way of teaching to children that learn a different way. And you know what? In a few years' time, we'll probably have half of our class that's neurodivergent. So it's a no-brainer that we've got to change the way that we deliver things. And, the fact that we are so busy just proves that people are searching for something to provide children with a lot more of a creative, diverse curriculum. But I mean, originally I started off trying to just support neurodivergent children because I love to learn. Yet my parents were told that I hated learning. Every time they went to a parents' evening, it was like, oh, she's not the academic type. She doesn't like to learn. And it was never true. I just didn't like the way they were doing it. But it's like, I feel like they should be given a chance. They should be given a chance. It should be given it in their way, the way that they like it. But like I said, originally it was just for me to support SEN, and I'd got this passion. And I was like, I just want to do things a lot more differently. I want to support them. I want to give them a chance. And then it just works for all children. And it was like, yeah, but there's children out there that also need to be outside and need to be active. There's also children out there that, are feeling, down and sad and anxious. I mean, anxious wasn't anything we used with children 14 years ago. And now it's a really big thing. Every child's got something that they need support with that can be helped with teaching outside. And as soon as I started to see all of that, I was like, well, actually, this is the most inclusive way that we can deliver a curriculum ever. Like, for me, it's a complete no brainer. To my schools, it's a no brainer. I think people find that teaching outside is not as easy as teaching in. And that's it. We've got to get over that it is comfortable teaching inside. And my schools don't teach fully outside. I'm not the full forest school side of things. I'm about balance. I believe that there's quite a lot that should be inside that doesn't fit outside, but I think there's a hell of a lot that can go outside.
It's really inspirational to kind of hear about. I think the world needs more teachers like you to kind of
Oh,
understand the children.
yeah. And do you know what? It wasn't easy at school. I was really inconstant. I didn't believe I was great at learning. I know how they feel. It's not nice always being that child that can't complete that task. And I also had two really bright sisters who are both solicitors now, but they were both just got things like that. And it was so frustrating for me because it never clicked. And yeah, you get naughty and you get this sort of tarnished side of yourself that this is what you're not very clever and, you're just silly and you're all of this. And actually, my story could have been very different had I'd been taught the Muddy Puddle Teacher way, I think.
Just as a final thought, what would you say is your key takeaway from today's chat?
Go and do it. Get outside and get muddy. I just think it's really lovely to just reflect on and just be appreciated and people out there wanting to listen to how we can do things differently. I think, education has been very similar since the Victorian age. We might have introduced talking round tables and not straight rows. We might not be using the cane anymore, but if we really, really look into it, there's so much that's still similar. Yet our children have changed so much. And I suppose it's about education is a very professional practice. And I think we need to just step back a little bit and just remember this is for children. This is for kids that like being in soft play areas and Disneylands and rolling down hills. And we need to really just reflect on that and give them the most nurturing environment to learn within. I'm just thankful for people to want to listen to that and want to help put that onto a platform. So thank you very much.
Is there anything coming up for you that you want to tell our audience about?
We're on TikTok now, so if anybody wants to go on TikTok. And yeah, we've got our social media channels and all we do on there is help you. So we just do demo videos, but always creating new practices. We've just created a new rope method for outside. We're sort of like a research hub, just always constantly we still go out there teaching children and training teachers, and we're constantly coming up with new methods and ideas for you. So if you're really interested in this practice, and I know some teachers and educators will be at schools where their senior leadership aren't on board with this, and that's fine. I think you just need to wait, and develop on this yourself because Wales have it interwoven into their curriculum. Scotland are on it. England have got to come forward with it because children are playing inside more than ever. This is the only way to balance a healthy education. I've got a tour coming up, so there's some tour dates on our site. So it's www.themuddypuddleteacher.co.uk. And yeah, we've got free course on there and we've got a free scheme of work in science for every age group and some free schemes for early years as well. So we do give a lot away for free as well to try and help you get out there. I've got the early years book out. That's Muddy Puddle Teacher Handbook. It's a playful curriculum for early years. So you can find that on Amazon or Bloomsbury. And then I've just finished my second one now. That's for Key Stage 1. So we're just waiting for that to get finished and that'll be out hopefully this year sometime soon. Hopefully.
Very exciting. Yeah, amazing stuff. Yeah. It's been so lovely to chat to you, Sarah.
Thank
you
you
so much for coming on to our show.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thanks to Sarah for joining us today. We had a really lovely chat with her. What were your key takeaways? I think my key takeaways were just the impact that being outside can have on your mental health, even if it's for just 15 minutes a day in the morning. If you just walk outside for a little bit, that can change your whole perspective on the day. What about you? And tagging onto the end of that, making sure that you're dressed very well, because we're making sure we are, because it's snowing here at the moment. My key takeaways were I always felt like indoor lessons and outdoor lessons were separate kind of things, that there wasn't much crossover during a session, but she did mention like maybe making 10 minutes of it outdoors and then coming back inside. So I think that was my key takeaway, being more flexible with the outdoor learning.
Thanks again to Sarah for joining us on our episode today.
Let us know what you thought about today's episode and get in touch with us on our socials.
Make sure to follow us for updates and leave a review.
Join us next week where we'll be chatting to Ocean Generation.
But for now,
Bye!